Welcome, everyone. Okay, so from discussing how we are bringing talent into the state, we're going to talk about Hoosiers and what we are doing as a state to ensure we have the right curriculum at the K through 12 and post-secondary and beyond, and really skilling the talent that we have available to us here in our Hoosier state. I'm Megan Glover, co-founder and CEO of 120 Water. We are a digital water platform that water professionals use to manage our drinking water compliance programs at the federal and state level. I also serve on the governor's workforce cabinet, and since 2019, and jumped at the opportunity when asked to represent the tech voice in conjunction with advanced manufacturing, life sciences, and health, and all of the other more traditional sectors. So making sure that the tech community has a voice, and we are focusing on the right skills and certifications that we need now and into the future. And excited to be joined with these other panelists who are going to introduce themselves about how they're doing this day in and day out through their leadership and organizations. So Don, we'll start with you and move on.
Sure. Don Wettrick, founder and CEO of STARTedUP Foundation. We run Innovate Within, which is a high school entrepreneurship and innovation program and competition.
I'm Natalie Applegate. I'm a senior manager of consulting at Ascend Indiana, where we are connecting talent to jobs across Indiana. I specifically support the Modern Apprenticeship Initiative. That is a 2 to 3 year program that places high school students in paid work experience related instruction at our employers across central Indiana and communities across Indiana.
Hi, I'm Abby Gehring. I'm the Director of Engagement for 1150 Academy. We are a nonprofit cybersecurity and coding bootcamp that really focuses on place and project-based workforce initiatives in order to get people skilled into the much needed talent gap that exists today, and to make this an attractive area to attract more business. So happy to be here today.
Great, excited to chat with you all. How many of you are familiar with the governor's workforce cabinet and the work there? Okay, why don't we start there? So Governor Holcomb organized the governor's workforce cabinet back in 2018. And really the mission behind that was to centralize a lot of the silos that have currently existed in the state of Indiana, and really focus into one unified mission, which is to ensure that the curriculum and programs and funding for said programs are funneling through one centralized mission, which is creating jobs now and skilling the workforce of the future. And we are focused on K through 12, post-secondary, as well as re-entrants into the workforce, or job changers and programs that support that stakeholder group as well. So, we are actively working on how tech and the right certifications and programs get integrated into legacy programs, especially those in rural communities might be familiar with kind of the legacy CTE programs. These are large buildings, traditionally got a lot of funding for things like welding and working a machine in manufacturing. So how do we expand our notion of skilled labor and workforce and training to meet the needs and demands of jobs in the future? So excited to really focus with what we're doing in the Hoosier State and what we could be doing better, and examples of good right now. So Don, let's start with you. You run Innovate Within. Mm-hmm. And it's the largest statewide pitch competition for high school students. Mm-hmm. That is awesome. Let's talk about what are some gaps that you are seeing within that group, stakeholder group, high school students, that we could bridge to, bring more entrepreneurial skills.
I think really awareness. A lot of times my favorite thing to ask is, what is the purpose of school? And the most common and cliche answer is to prepare kids for the future. Okay. Memorizing the SAT is not preparing them for the future. It is not innovative. Having kids in a mindset of innovation, of seeing problems as opportunities, of being able to break a problem down, and to focus on skills is. And so some of the students, some of the parents even, if they focus on just the grades and just school, that's the problem. We've seen, though, a lot of change, and a lot of communities are now starting to see that the world's changing. And so awareness is probably our biggest concern. So we I'm actually really happy to talk about this. We just partner now with the Department of Ed and such a huge seismic shift now and focus on innovation, entrepreneurship from the DOE as well. But they wanted us to talk about building ecosystems through the lens of students and teachers. So this year we're finding 5 teachers for every region in the ESC, or the Education Service Centers of Indiana. There's 9 of them. So all told, 45 teachers, where those teachers will be connectors. We're expecting those teachers to meet with local mayors. We're expecting those teachers to get involved in employers and to listen to some of their needs, but also provide those opportunities and those insights to the students. Have people in the community champion those opportunities. And ironically enough, as I look through the crowd, a lot of these people are here now. John McDonald honestly gave me a huge start in this years ago when I started my class. Steve Franks has never said no to us there in the Fort Wayne region. Ted Baker has been supporting us in Muncie since the beginning. Kim Brand, I'm literally looking around saying, like, Trey Buck has helped my students, Kim Brand has helped my students, and now it's a statewide initiative. And I think that's really exciting because now, and I swear to God, I'm wrapping this up, but
No,
like
don't.
the state of Indiana, we have 3 rounds. So round 1, we have a free curriculum. And actually, we recruited some of the best people in the nation to teach kids in Indiana. We have Seth Godin teaching marketing to Indiana students. We have John Ford of CNBC Squawk Alley teaching students about marketing and networking. Naveen Jain, tech billionaire, talking about mindset. But we take these lessons, give them free. Because actually in the first couple years, the curriculum was not there. This was really good for suburban schools. Inner city and rural were lacking. We scaled them up, we gave them some lessons, and then we exploded in inner city and rural this last year. We've doubled every year. So that the curriculum goes out, we round all those up, we give a top 10 for every region, so there's 9 regions. We break it down to 90 teams. Round 2, this is my favorite part, we have the pitch competition on a university campus in 9 different spots in Indiana, and they're required to meet with their small business development center. And this has been a game changer because a lot of the SBDC counselors are like, these kids are awesome. And number 2, they want to retain them. Case in point, this last year, small area, Campbellsburg, Indiana was our champions this year. These young men manufactured their own fishing lures, and they have sales in all 50 states, plus Spain and Portugal. Their mayor didn't know this existed, and now they do. So we're going to incentivize these kids to stay. Once we identify that regional winner, they immediately win $1,000 per person up to a team of 3. So that's seed funding for the next round. They have 6 weeks to 7 weeks where they work with us and their SBDC. We train them, make some pivots, make some changes, maybe change some of their marketing. And at the state level, we last year had it at the JW Marriott, where we always get a nice turnout. Governor Holcomb's always gracious enough to welcome them and give feedback to the students. But we want to showcase this because there's one thing that, like, don't get me wrong, like the last panel, like how to attract talent, I mean, we've got it. And I, as a teacher of 21 years, was tired of seeing some of our best students go to fine universities here in Indiana, but then bail. So if we can train up and then get our students to start thinking more innovatively, I want to start getting that talent pipeline and keeping them here, and not just for Indianapolis. I'm talking about we're finding some talent in Rushville, Evansville, Fort Wayne. Maybe we can convince them to improve quality of life there and the educational system to focus on innovation entrepreneurship.
That's awesome. Awesome. When do you come to Zionsville? My 10-year-old would love that. But I mean, along those, how do you get, when you go into a community, what is the reaction from the students? Are they immediately, I can't wait to do this like Shark Tank thing, or is there an education component that has to happen, from the ground up?
I don't want to label, but this really resonates with C and below students. Students that really play the game of school. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with getting a great GPA, but seeing the opportunities in front of you that aren't just academic has been a challenge. The C students are like, are you serious? And we've had students that want to start food trucks to skate shops to a lot of other things, but then now services, tech apps, that they already have some interest. Again, the hardest part is penetrating the school walls, that there are other issues more than just the I-STEP and the SAT. But again, now we're hopefully going to be recruiting 45 teachers to be ambassadors, and I think that's going to be our big push for this year. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going really build ecosystems that way through the teachers and the students.
That's fantastic. And then final question, because what's the relationship at the curriculum level with the DOE? I mean, is that?
So it's we did our own curriculum. They didn't micromanage. They were just excited to sponsor this teacher cohort. But we did their curriculum on our own, and we very deliberately, after actually we started it with inner city and rural in mind, we got feedback from them of like, please make it 10-minute bites. We have teachers that teach home ec to engineering, to business teachers, to math that use it. A lot of times they'll call it a bell ringer activity. So we have a just press play. And if you have time for feedback and time for the class discussion, it's there for you. If you just want to use it in your classroom, that's fine. And some schools just pass it off their students and go, whoever wants to participate. So the curriculum has been brief, punchy, and in a TikTok world, it works if it's shorter. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I guess from the K through 12 walls, let's move into the workforce walls, Abby. So 1150, I'll let you explain kind of 1150 and what you've been pioneering in terms of tech skills for the state for the past several years. Also pioneered the state's new Indiana Career Accelerator Fund, which I'm on the committee, and we approved our first applications yesterday.
Exciting.
Hooray. And excited for you to speak a little bit more to that and the impact that's really going to have on Hoosiers and our workforce. So let's maybe start there, if you will, since we were talking about that in a little bit more detail and the mission, the purpose behind that, and what you were really hoping
to achieve what Scott was hoping to achieve, not necessarily, but I'm definitely pushing that mission forward. So
pretty
I'm
integral.
going to piggyback off what Dawn is talking about. So really what we are focused on is demand-driven workforce education. So as we all know, there is a massive gap in talented people, and the fact is that tech is a level set for many communities and many people that maybe thought they were left behind. So some of those C students that maybe did a little bit of college, they stopped out. So now they work in retail or hospitality, or they live in a rural community where one manufacturer leaves and the entire median household income drops by 50%. You're seeing things like that in southern Indiana, rural communities, and being such a heavy manufacturing sector. We are now seeing 5 generations of people working together, and some companies are just firing people, not realizing that there aren't people really to replace them. So what we really should be focused on is how can we reskill and upskill those people, but do it in a way that doesn't put people into debt. So Scott has really pioneered this thing called the Career Accelerator Fund. He's worked tirelessly to get it put into Indiana legislation over the past 2.5 years. So as she said, it just got approved. And the whole purpose behind it is to create, as Mike said, an incremental tax benefit to people that get skilled up. So there is a 10-year benefit that follows a graduate that gets fed back into these funds and into community funds that will continue to fund future people. So there's a feel-good kind of pay it forward. One person graduates. If you're going by our stats, the average starting salary was $56,000 for somebody entering into tech just in 3 to 6 months, which sounds kind of unfathomable, but we have a fully immersive program that takes people from what I do, which is going out, creating these community organizations, getting people out of silos that are all running towards the same direction. How do we get them all together to figure out what services maybe could be layered in to help people be successful? Right into having a massive team of tech recruiters that we hired that now reach out to companies and build those bridges and kind of help get people into jobs. So you get a lot of people that didn't know that entering tech was a possibility, and we're creating those, the knowledge base to help people get into that. But is that one graduate funds 2.5 future students with the way that this is structured, and it's a 0% interest. So once they take the loan out, they pay nothing towards it in interest. It's literally whatever they borrowed, and it's only if they're successful. So it's really about encouraging providers to be accountable all the way through the process, and then also getting someone a job. So it is required that people graduate at least 75% of people from every course, and that you have to get 65% of those people employed within 3 months, and that they have to be making more than they made before. So again, it's about holding people accountable, helping communities to really grow. And for Scott, it was a massive passion project. And then what I'm working on from a financial perspective is working with communities to raise additional funds that can be directed back into the fund, and also to help with segments of the population that may be left behind that don't qualify. So if you're looking at, I'm working on a project right now for people on the spectrum. Some of those kids, they didn't graduate high school, right? So they're not going to qualify for those programs. But if we can create a good pathway, not only into tech, but into other fields that we can, again, help them financially where it's not burdening them, that's a massive thing to just create this ecosystem. And Indiana is on the forefront. We are the first state to pass legislation of this sort. Does that help? But yeah, and also working on asylees. I've got all these things going on. I'm like, how do we get more immigrants into these? With Ready grants, there are all these empty homes that were being repurposed for vocational education. So how can we help with that and kind of encourage more diversity across the state?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and truly it was, the colleagues on this committee, as we were reviewing the applications, could not believe that, a cybersecurity certificate could be employable at that entry level, and literally had to educate, no, this is not bogus, and this is a transferable job to sectors, not just in tech or IT.
It's in every sector.
It's every sector, right? Yeah. So again, very excited to see the benefits, long-term benefits of that. So let's back to 1150.
Yeah.
At 120, we've personally benefited from many 1150 graduates, and some of our best employees have kind of graduated through 1150. How does that complement the existing kind of education ecosystem here in the state?
So with 1150 Academy, as I said, it's more, we teach you the skills. We still rely upon higher ed to teach you some of those roundabout sort of life things, more the business acumen. We do support people throughout that, but we really focus on a few things. So the funding we already talked about. So those funds are not only for 1150, and they have always been available to anybody who meets those parameters and trains people in the 5 hot sectors. We have on-ramps and off-ramps and getting creative with higher ed. So we have partnerships with IB Tech, Vincennes, articulations in place, continuing to grow so that we have opportunities for people to continue to grow in their career, or for people to, have somewhere to come in order to enhance. Last year alone, over 50% of our students had a college degree. So we're talking all the way up to a doctorate, where people during the pandemic saw a shift that they wanted to do something that was recession proof, or maybe they wanted to move, or maybe they went to school for art history and they work in retail. So they were tired of that and they wanted to be able to join the highest paid sector behind being a doctor. Honestly, I just saw a report out of the top 100 jobs, tech took 25, and the only ones that were higher, you had to be a doctor. So the average annual income was $114,000 a year across the entire United States for those jobs. So it's a huge opportunity, but we definitely partner with higher ed to create opportunities for those students that still want to go to school for art history. So we've done creative things like sprint semesters in the summer and spring to give certifications, so that then your tech companies can benefit from a well-rounded employee that isn't necessarily going to code, but maybe they're going to act as project manager or whatever it is that you think that they would be great at.
That's great. So let's talk about the employer through the modern apprenticeship. So Natalie, through the work that the Ascend's doing with the modern apprenticeship, which is essentially to connect students with modern day employers to provide on-the-job training that hopefully leads to full-time employment. Can you just give us a rundown on what modern apprenticeship is and how this model could work for tech?
Sure. So Ascend is working closely with our workforce board and Marion County Employee Indy to really bring a model that has been successful in countries like Switzerland, Germany, that really get apprenticeship, and this is a norm for students. And even thinking back into elementary school, that I'm going to pursue an apprenticeship as a pathway towards careers and post-secondary education. And so we're learning from other countries as well as other states to bring in what's traditionally called youth apprenticeship. We've kind of branded it as modern apprenticeship in Central Indiana to really create that win-win-win for employers, for students, and as well as schools. And so what we've found is that, through our relationships that we have at Ascend Indiana, as well as Tools such as our Ascend Network, that's our job matching platform, and our consulting side where I sit on. We're really able to kind of mesh all of these pieces together and provide that relevant, meaningful work experience that students are craving, that schools are looking for as part of their CTE or work-based learning requirements, and that employers need. We really kind of position this as, especially in the tech field, kind of what are your challenges to finding talent, and how can we help you start to groom this talent and build that specialized pipeline into your company as well as the tech field. And what we're finding is that we're able to work with a lot of different companies, really, everywhere from a startup to ed tech consulting, even to more traditional companies that are really needing that IT support tech or a junior coder or a position that might not need a college degree, but really needs that skills-based, kind of competency-based training that we can really start with in high school. And so really our job is positioning the students for success. We're providing a program that's about 2 to 3 years, starting in a junior year of high school of a student's experience, and combines that paid on-the-job learning. So the student is another employee of that company, and they're doing relevant tasks that other employees would be doing. There are some things that they would have to gradually get to, but it's upon supervision of staff there. They have major milestones that they have to hit. And upon those, the proficiencies and the competencies, they're gaining increased wages over time. And so we very much see this as these are at least livable wage jobs, and we're positioning them for a pathway towards success. And really, the culmination of gaining college credit. Many of them are earning credit towards a certificate. We're working very closely with Ivy Tech and Vincennes as well to make sure that there are those on and off ramps, as Abby was saying too, with our program. So there are options for students upon completion, as well as aligning to things like, state earn and learn designations, registered apprenticeships. So we know there will be multiple options upon completion. And all along kind of designing the related instruction with the schools. So many of the students that we're working with in our first cohort in Central Indiana are coming from the CTE pathway that you were mentioning. Many of them have a strong interest, especially in the IT field. We've seen students even, they started coding in 6th grade. And so this is a fantastic opportunity for them to kind of get that relevant experience, gain that social capital on the job and the professional networking, as well as the pathway towards at least high school graduation, but even better, having the option to go back to college too.
And what's the reception like with employers? How do you get them on board and say, we are going to skill up this high schooler in a meaningful way?
Yeah. So, for some employers, it kind of ranges. We try to meet everyone where they are, of course. For some employers, they have come to us through other avenues or referral sources. We're working with other organizations such as TechPoint. And, I mentioned Employee Indy that have heard, this company is really eager for talent or is struggling to diversify their talent pool is another one. And really seeing, the Central Indiana schools is the best pool to recruit from. We really try to position it as, how can we provide value through the Modern Apprenticeship Initiative to your company, and really work towards that return on investment, knowing this is a long-term talent strategy. I mentioned 2 to 3 years, but really the idea is that you would essentially hire this student upon completion of that apprenticeship as well. And even some of the work we're doing is kind of debunking some of the perceptions that you might hear when you hear about apprenticeship. I like to say, it's not my grandfather's apprenticeship that is in the kind of skilled trades, but that we're seeing this in really interesting and needed fields, such as the tech space, business services, and others that, life sciences, medical, or IT kind of fits into all of those spaces too. And as I mentioned, we just had our first cohort of apprentices start, and the feedback we're getting from employers is that, they have really rise to the occasion and are kind of, a little bit surprised by the caliber of work that the students can bring. And are working really hard just to, impress their employers, but also know that this is something different that they might not be getting in the classroom every day.
Absolutely. And if there are employers or folks that are interested, like that sounds exactly like how do they connect with you? How are you? What's the best way to connect in terms of getting involved in that program?
Yeah, so if this is of interest to anyone here and any employers that you know of, we certainly can share our contact information, and really kind of right now it's reaching out to us. We have a website too, indmodernapprenticeship.com, that has more information about what it is, how you can get involved, and kind of the low level commitment needed to partner with us. But really, we we're recruiting for our next cohort to start in fall 2022. And are starting to design what those pathways look like at each company, and are eager to work with more. We know there's several of you here that we've been talking to as well that have been finding solutions and creative pathways for students already.
So these are amazing programs for students, and let's talk about how are we making sure that we are accessing diverse populations, and particularly disadvantaged communities around the state. Abby, I think you have some examples, but I'd love to open that question up to this entire group. How are we bridging that gap?
Sure, so I'll take that. So as a nonprofit, we are very focused on ensuring that we are helping three key populations. So underserved or minority populations. In the rural communities, that's more just underserved folks. We're looking at veterans and getting more women into tech, as well as military spouses. Huge opportunity for military spouses because they're often displaced, and I have family members in the military that maybe couldn't finish college either because they kept getting moved or things got in the way. Right? You get deployed, it's kind of hard to finish your degree. So then they end up working different sorts of jobs. But we work a lot on the fundraising aspect. We actually have a really massive project going on right now here in Indianapolis. It's through the Lilly Endowment. So we received $5 million to work on this project for 46218. And so the purpose of that project is to really provide opportunities for people, again, that thought they didn't really have an opportunity. And through a collaboration with Martin University, giving them a pathway to a college degree, working with down to the prosecutor's office to help with expungements. So we're really trying to get everybody involved and do something no one else has done before, because communities like that exist everywhere, but they're used to people just coming in, they get some money, and then they leave because they realize it's too hard. So it's very on the ground, ensuring that we're having daily events, we're getting clergy involved, grandmas, aunts, uncles, literally everyone in every organization that can provide wraparound. The United Way is great with the ALICE population, so helping from a financial aspect, or wraparound services like childcare, a ride. Honestly, those are the huge things I think that were talked about last week at an event I was at. It was just home and transportation were the two biggest challenges to help people be able to succeed. So it's kind of that you teach a man to fish, but what if he doesn't have a pole, and what if he doesn't know where the pond is, right? So what can we do to help? And we're working on those projects in similar fashion in Northwest Indiana, and I will be, reaching out to people because I've got to also do similar projects in 10 other regions in the state. So creating the funding, the wraparound services, ensuring that people are getting into, whether it's our program or another program, that is going to get them into society.
It's one of the reasons why we did our curriculum. In the first couple of years, this competition was really great for suburban schools. And when some of the students from inner city or rural would have a good raw idea, they'd get stumped on the judge's question of, market validation or feasibility and scalability. And sometimes they didn't quite understand. When we changed the curriculum and gave it out for free, that set off two things. Number one, it got them to go, oh, okay, I get that. But number two, and I failed to mention this earlier, that opened up this tidal wave of support from Indiana universities and colleges. Fun fact, round one participants, just if you go through, take the curriculum, make a 3-minute video pitch, do an executive summary in a business canvas, you're guaranteed to, well, again, from one of like 14 colleges and universities, the worst scholarship, I shouldn't say worst, the most entry level scholarship we have is $1,000. You can be renewed 4 times. $4,000 for taking it. That's the barrier to entry. Then universities got really aggressive on like trying to attract the students that went to regional. And then they got really interesting when the students that got to go to state. Matter of fact, I got to mention our highest and best offer was from University of Evansville. This last year, if you were on the winning team, you got to get a full ride, room and board, a trip to London to do a 1-week design thinking course at their sister university, and a paid internship and accelerator. You'd be net $20,000 positive if you want to. That was insane. But the nice thing is that incentive of college money, for some people that were looking for scholarships anywhere, that was a nugget of gold in growth in inner city and rural. And so by default almost, that we provided that service, then the universities came in and piled on, has been our big boost. And so we're really excited that we've grown in those communities.
Absolutely. Along those lines, what does an ideal ecosystem look like to, foster this level of innovation?
You're looking at them. I mean, I'm scanning the crowd, and there's so many people that have helped along the way, like a lot. And I don't want to start shamelessly name dropping even things that are like opening up, Hub and Spoke. I mean, I know Casey Bolseger for years. I mean, I'm going around the crowd, like TechPoint has been involved. Like a lot of, and this is what we're excited about now working with the DOE. A lot of you guys are interested in talent. And there was there. And I think that by trying to do this programming and showcase of I hate to call it a competition, but getting involved, mayors have been gold for us. They're sick of losing people too. Matter of fact, I'm not sure if Chris Jensen's here yet, but we just met with the mayor of Fort Wayne the other day, and the mayor of help me out, Richmond the other day, and like they're like, yes, how do we keep some of these awesome people here? So I think quality of life, and then maybe what's on everybody's mind. I remember John McDonald and I went out to Hartford City, I think in Blackford County, and rural internet, like a rural internet, and some of these students that are incredibly talented, they'd stick around, especially if we're making introductions to people like you, to people at the small business development centers. That is where it's at. And then, my gosh, then offering up internships. Are you kidding? When kids, and all the data suggests that if you start showcasing the services and you give them the white glove treatment, despite GPA, the students want to stay. And then okay, traditional colleges isn't for me. Great, 1150, Kenzie. There's so many great offerings out there to help scale up our talent. It's just a matter of us, and final point, of us stopping so humble. If we want to brag about some of these things, that I'm shamelessly promoting the fact that Innovate Within is right now the biggest entrepreneurship competition for high school students in the nation. And I want to beat my chest saying that, because, and it's not because of Innovate Within. We're standing on the shoulders of student giants. The things that they're turning out are going, whoa. And at the end of this, I'm going to give away Ginsu knives, but wait, there's more. We also deliberately take them to another city. So the top 10 teams, the first year we went out to New York City, second year was Austin, third year was supposed to be Seattle, COVID canceled it. This year was Phoenix. But as they go and they present to all these all-stars in other cities, matter of fact, I think our biggest moment, and I hate to keep shamelessly name dropping Seth, but the students were going around telling them what their idea or what their real business was. And Seth Godin stopped and he's like, where are you from again? And I believe he was from Rushville, or I could be mistaken, maybe it's Shelbyville. And he goes, kid, you could make it here. And then quietly I'm like, but they're never gonna give you this time and attention in New York. And so showing the students that, yes, there's a lot of things out there, but if we show them the attention and the care and the support they need, we'll keep them. I've lived here. I'm 40 years old. I've traveled. My parents were teachers, so I've traveled the nation. I've always wanted to live in Indiana. I've always wanted to stay here. and visit San Diego from time to time like everybody else. But I think that ecosystem we're building, and a lot of people are in this room right now that they're concerned. Our talent is here. I want to keep them.
And if I could build off of that, there's so many tidbits that you just shared that really resonated. I think, what we're seeing too is like what you said, the exposure, awareness, but how critical those supports are for both the employers and the students to making this successful, and being intentional about, how can we get to those equitable outcomes that we're looking for. I know we have a lot of employers that say, we have these initiatives around diversity, equity, and inclusion, but haven't really done much with it, or we don't know how to operationalize it. And so, we see ourselves as saying, this is how we can help as far as, looking at some of the high schools and looking at the data. Our first cohort of students, more than 90% are considered minority, more than 60% are females, and that is unheard of in the workplace in general, but especially in the tech field. And so they're not able to get that from remote workers or elsewhere, but it's not enough just to recruit. We have specific youth apprenticeship managers who are dedicated to each company and each student to troubleshoot issues that come along, to help with things like transportation and other common barriers, internet access that I know the last panel talked about in great detail. And that has been helping tremendously, just to know that this participation is, able for all students, and that we can work with all companies and make this happen, even if you don't have a staff already in your company dedicated to this. So we're really excited about all of those components too, and just the potential and all the ability that we can bring to more companies through modern apprenticeship.
Absolutely. Well, I know that we are coming at time, but we'll pose the last few minutes that we have this question to the group, but then honestly, anybody out in the audience there, what do you think the most important steps are that the state of Indiana should take to make sure that we are training our youth and adults for tech and innovation?
Swear to God, I'll be brief. Focus more than just on academia.
Focus more than what?
On more than just academia. It's more than the SAT, it's more than the ISTEP. There is even in one like, let's get kids in tech, there's a mindset first. Seeing problems as opportunities, being able to understand how to build a team, how to identify a problem, work backwards, understand measuring goals. These are things that we're deeply concerned about first.
I would agree. Yeah, it's about outcomes. It doesn't even matter really what it is you're teaching. It's like, what is the fruit? What are we looking to bear? And so I think that's the big thing. When I present, I usually start with that front end. This is how much we're making. This is how much these people can do. And this is how we're going to help get there together. But it's really everyone working together. And since I've moved into the nonprofit world, it's been great to see so many people so passionate about helping people get on this path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely agree with both things said, and just add the importance of collaboration and knowing that we really do need to work together, with our local governments, with our schools, nonprofits, private sector businesses to make this happen. And it really does take a village to support, building the talent pipeline for the future.
Well, good. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.